Hey guys, Eli here, and just wanted to recap day one, the first 12 hours or so of the league. As some of you know, I started the Chieftain Consecrated Path Totem build that I made a video guide for recently, and I just wanted to recap kind of what we did, what struggles we ran into, how the day went, how we progressed. So let's just jump right into it. In the background, we're going to see just gameplay of what I did, how I did it, and really to start with Shield Crush we decided to go with Blood and Sand and Herald of Ash when we got to Act 2 and War Banner. So War Banner and Blood and Sand are both ores you can get in Act 1. And then for Shield Crush, we were using Ruthless and Added Fire, which you also get in Act 1. So that's our 3 link, that's what we're using. And then from there, it's really all about just getting the generic melee damage passives on the tree, and you can see that leveling tree in the path of building linked below for this build. And from there, it's really just a matter of keeping up to date on shields, because Shield Crush gets extra damage for every 15 armor or evasion that we have on our shields. So we want to keep an eye on breakpoints for when new tiers of shields can drop, which are like level 17, 24, 31, and then 35, 36 as well. And that's important because we really only need to get to level 38, which is where we get multiple totems support. And that's important because, in the grand scheme of things, we want to move over to Consecrated Path totems as soon as we can. But although we get level 28 Consecrated Path skill gem and we get the Earthbreaker support in Act 1, so technically at level 28 we could switch over to Consecrated Path totems. It's not a great idea because we can't summon our Ancestral Protectors and 2 of our Consecrated Path totems at once unless we have level 38 and get multiple totems. So it's really all about getting 38. And with the gem links that I talked about before, it doesn't matter if you link Ancestral Protector when you get that level 10 to anything. It's not really doing a whole lot of damage. It's just there to help us deal more damage and attack a little bit faster when we need it for bosses. And in Act 3, we pick up Vulnerability as well and Anger. There's, just like any build where you transition into something else, you want to pick up the skill gems as you get them so you can start leveling them even if you're not going to use them. For example, the Anger support, it's a 50% mana reserve skill, but if we do that and we throw it in with everything else that we have on with War Banner, Herald of Ash, and Blood and Sand, and we also use Precision Aura, I forgot to mention that too, then we won't have any mana left over to actually cast stuff. So we don't use Anger once we get it in Act 3, but we do want to level it. So keep that in mind. You do have to balance a little bit of quality of life in terms of being able to actually use your mana pool and be able to throw out totems as you need them, and use Shield Crush. Now, my experience with using Shield Crush to start and level up with really was pretty smooth. And it does depend on you kind of paying attention and using the vendors to your advantage. You don't want to socket anything into your shield that is important. You really want to put red socket gems in there because you're going to be replacing it pretty frequently. So you want to find a 3-link body armor or boots or helm or gloves, something that will stay put, or a weapon, because we don't really care about our weapon in this build. Basically any slot except your shield, because that's going to be changing a lot. But if you do that and you keep in mind the breakpoints of when you can get new shields and go and check the vendors when you level up if you haven't found an upgrade, and hopefully you get a little bit lucky and find something that has an increased armor or evasion modifier or both if you find a nice hybrid shield, and that will help scale Shield Crush because you're getting extra added flat damage per 15 armor or evasion, and it moves fairly easily through the content. Now, the biggest thing you can do here is keep an eye out for a Brutus-led sprinkler on the trade site. So people are going to put them up pretty quickly. By the time I was 28, there were a number of them. 28 is the level requirement for it. There was quite a few, and they were listed for 3 chaos, and then it quickly went down to 2 chaos while I was leveling up through maybe 40 or so. But I managed to pick one up through some friends of mine had a couple extra chaos. I had a chaos, so we put it together so I could get that. But that said, if you're playing solo, you don't have anyone else that's playing Path of Exile with you this league, then keep in mind that early league, people are going to list things for chaos, but bartering is very doable. And there's a lot of, all of these currencies are equivalent to each other. You know, a certain amount of jewelers and fusings and regret orbs and scourings. All of these things can be used. And alchemy orbs, especially people early on want alchemy orbs. You'd be like, hey, I don't have a chaos orb, but I have one chaos orb, but I have like 6 alchemies, or you know, a smattering of other stuff. Chance orbs are also important because you buy maps with them. All of these currencies are valuable. People just want currency. Usually it doesn't matter if it's chaos or not. Sometimes you'll run into someone who's like a stickler and it's like, no, it has to be chaos. Like, whatever, move on to the next one. There's always going to be someone else. So we picked up our Brutus led sprinkler at 28, and from there we did not transition over to consecrated path. Remember, we need to be level 38 for multiple totems to make things feel smooth, and also to give us time with our passive tree and getting passives to get up into the ancestral bond keystone. In that area, start getting some totem passives and all that good stuff. Once we got into consecrated path totems, all I did was tech into ancestral bond, and we went into the labyrinth and got our first ascendancy. It's really important to get that first ascendancy and get Tukohama War's Herald node, because that increases the activation range of our totems and the buffs from Ancestral Protector to make them attack faster, which is really important for quality of life and clear speed. We're going to get Ancestral War Chief, and you can use that, but I'd recommend while leveling pretty much sticking to using 2 Ancestral Protectors and 2 Consecrated Path Totems so that they can move around the screen and crawl along and catch any stragglers, whereas the War Chief is going to be static, even if he is going to make our 1 Consecrated Path Totem hit a lot harder. It's not a huge buff at this low level, and it's just easier and better, more efficient to have 2 totems that are running around killing stuff as opposed to 1 static one sitting in a corner. So we did that, and we cleared through the campaign. It was pretty easy going, prioritizing on the tree, getting the attribute cluster nodes, and modeling the tree more after what the endgame tree is supposed to look like for this build. And we get a bunch of passive respec points throughout the campaign, through the story mode, getting our passive points. So we can use that to kind of fix up our tree a little bit. That's the nice thing about the Shield Crush start, is that nothing is out of the way. Everything is along the main tree that we're using anyway, along the path. So you're only respecing out of stuff that are notable clusters, as opposed to respecing through the small passives like the plus 10 attribute points. That's where it gets more expensive for respecing, and that's a bonus of this build where you don't really have to spend that much to get back onto your endgame consecrated path tree. And so how am I feeling about the game, about the league itself? You know, once we got into maps and started leveling up and things were going a little bit smoother, and we're just kind of plowing through the different tiers and getting our passive points, it is fucking great. This is a fantastic league so far. I love the simplification of the Atlas and being able to just look at it and look at the node here where you have like the Maven progress, and it shows you, hey, defeat tier X plus while the Maven is watching on your Atlas. You know, make sure that thing is orange, and it tells you how far you in your Maven progress in order to get another invitation. It's just so much simpler and so much easier to look at a glance, as opposed to the Maven isn't interested in this map tier. It's like, okay, well, what the hell does that mean? What tier does it have to be? They just put all the information out there for once, and honestly, it's kind of nice that my Atlas update video won't have to be this PhD studied master's degree of information and knowledge about how the Atlas is secretly working now. So kudos to Grinding Gear for simplifying that. That's awesome. The Atlas passive tree is fantastic. I'll be making a video on that, on what I think is the best way to level up with that. And we can get kind of a glance here. You can look at this now. Essentially what it is getting up through into the Kirak missions, points rather, and going right into the item quantity nodes in the ring in the middle there. That gives us access to branch off into a lot of different directions. We can go into the Exarch side, we can go to the Eater of Worlds, go up into the Maven, whatever we want to do. We could also just go back to the lower parts of the tree and increase chances for duplicate maps and additional maps dropped that are connected to the one that we're running. That's really what it's all about for me in the beginning, is essentially, if you want philosophically, what I'm doing is just increase quantity and map drop potential. That's it. Maybe a little bit of Kirak there because his free missions are fantastic and you want to get extra missions from him, so that's good too. Anything that helps us with map sustain early on is gold. All these other things of like, guaranteed essence drop or a strong buy, who gives a shit? That's all just, it's nonsense. What you want now when you get to maps is leveling up and map tiers. That's what you want. That's what will get you currency. That's what will get you into the upper ends of your passive tree for your character. So you can get the strength bonuses there in terms of power, and you can open up enough passive points to use cluster jewels, for example, that kind of thing. That's where your power spikes lie, and that's where your progression lies. And from there, you get currency, you get more passive points for the Atlas to get the specialized things that you really want to do that'll be fun. For now, if you don't drop maps, you don't get anywhere, and that's it, period. And real quick, I'll leave on this last note because I want to get back to playing, is the ArchNemesis League mode is actually a lot of fun. Early on, a couple friends of mine got tabula rasas through the guaranteed unique drop. Incredibly lucky, but early on it can also fix some of your currency problems because that one, at least for me, was relatively common. And so you can get your transmutation orbs for your skill gems and your alterations and the low level currencies that you really need to pick up those low level skill gems that you want to start leveling early on. So I found that really useful. And also you could do gear drops like armor and weapons. It seems, we're kind of conditioned to be like, oh, armor and weapon drops kind of suck. Early on, once you get into the range of things that can drop as 4-socket and 4-link, it can be pretty useful. So I applaud GGG for how they set that up. It's not terribly difficult to take down one tier of ArchNemesis, so it doesn't slow you down while you're going through the campaign if you really want to pick up some extra currency. The tier 1 ArchNemesis is really just a rare mob, so pretty easy to kill, get a quick little boost. I can't talk because I'm trying to talk fast and get out of this because I really want to play because I'm having fun. And then in the map, when it highlights for you when you have a recipe building based off of what you've put in before, that's so great. I don't really want to have to go to PoEDB and look at the data mine list of the recipes, and anything that takes me out of the game to play the game is not great. So I think Grinding Gear did this on purpose to help make sure that people stay in the game playing, which is a breath of fresh air after a game that really relies on third-party tools for a lot of its progression, if you want to be really quick about it, that is. So it's really nice to see them do that. And from what I understand, the multiplayer aspects of it, like they talked about in the Q&A session, are working pretty well. Whoever starts it, that's their map for the ArchNemesis. And that makes sense to me to stop people from getting into higher tier recipes really easily. So that's cool. That works out. Yeah, it works. The ArchNemesis mods also get really strong pretty quickly, and the modifiers you put on them can be pretty crazy. So it's fun to be able to spawn monsters that are either a legitimate challenge or in some cases better than you and stronger than you, and they just kind of put you down, or make you run away. So there it is. That's really all I have to say so far. We ended last night at level 78. Today I plan to get to fighting the Maven, ideally. I think we can get there, and maybe spawning the Exarch or the Eater of Worlds. One of the two. That's something I want to accomplish today and really fill out the Atlas. That's the goal. So stay tuned for that. We will have a day 2 recap, and I am getting back to playing. So good luck, everyone, and have fun.